Hello my friends, Sarah here from gracemyspace.com. Welcome back. Today we are going to walk through a DIY journey. One of the things that I value highly is sharing real life. I do not want to make things sound like they are a snap of a finger and it's done. DIY, homemaking, living is hard work. And so today's journey is all about that very difficult process. I found this amazing antique pine cabinet that I wanted to use in my kitchen as our secondary pantry, and I had every intention of getting this baby whipped out in a weekend. That didn't happen. But along the way, I learned quite a few lessons, and I'm going to share them with you so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Spoiler alert, in the end, it turns out just as I had imagined, so keep watching. It's an awesome piece. It has all kinds of shelving that goes right in here. I'm going to clean it, sand it, repair it, and put it in my kitchen as a pantry. The piece had seen a lot of wear and tear over the years. It was originally a part of a larger built-in, so there was some damage where they had separated it. It also had a very heavy lacquer. So I took a lot of time and I sanded down the top coat with a 60 grit sandpaper. So as you can see, this wood is highly grained. It's got really raised grain. And so all of this stain is really deep in there. The sander is not getting to it. I don't want to sand off all of the grain to where it's flat, but I also don't want it to look splotchy like this. So we're going to keep sanding with a finer grit, and then I'm going to try a different technique to really get the color I want. And this is after sanding with 150 grit, just to even it out a little bit more. The next step is to wash it and try some techniques to make it lighter. All right, we're on day 2 of the project. I'm trying a new method. So I've sanded it with, this is what I just tried. I've sanded it with 60 grit and then 150 grit, and it's still just kind of splotchy. I don't know if it's the wood species, it's just a pine cupboard, so really sure what's going on, but I'm going to try some methods to even out the tone, and the first thing I'm going to try is magic eraser. So right now I'm going to just do this section and see how it compares to the others before I spend time doing the entire cabinet. If nothing else, it'll be really clean when I'm done. Well, as you can see, did not lighten it. It still seems actually kind of darker than it was before, which I think it might still just be damp because it's really humid out. So, plan C. And here begins my first big mistake. All right, so the magic eraser did nothing. Actually, I think it made it darker, which was the opposite of what I wanted it to happen. So we're pulling out good old citrus strip. But I'm just gonna do a trial on one area before I apply it to the entire thing, see if it does anything. Listen as I explain my thought process. Looking back now, I know that this is definitely not something I should have done on a visible part. This should give us a pretty good picture of what it'll look like because it'll be compared to the other doors. Now we'll let that sit and see what happens. Always go with the grain when you're scraping off the finish. I really don't think it did anything, but I'm going to take out the rest of the way off with the steel wool and see what happens. By only stripping one door, I set myself up for failure the entire time because it was constantly lighter than the rest of the cabinet. So it looks like it's kind of bringing out the original undertones of the wood itself, of the pine. It's bringing out some of those yellow reddish tones. That is the opposite of what I was going for. So I'm going to let this dry, see what it looks like fully dry, and then it'll be plan D? Are we on D? Another day, another plan. Today I'm sanding back down where I stripped yesterday because it's no good. It's no good. We're gonna start fresh. Plan D, C, E. One of them's gonna work eventually. With every pass of the sander and washing the doors, it created more redness and it was really working against me. Okay, we're at the point of the project where I'm really regretting quite a few actions. If you've ever been in that situation, give me a like. Let's agree that sometimes DIYs are really, really frustrating. I definitely regret adding the citrus strip. It gunked rather than stripped. And I think there's a combination of I put it on a humid day. I also didn't cover it in saran wrap, which I should have, to help keep it moist rather than drying on the wood. And so it made it very hard to get off, as well as there's a lot of crevices and grooves that it's kind of gunked up in. So I just created more work for myself, but we're gonna get it done. All right, so the next step I'm gonna take is cleaning it because there's just so much gunk left from the citrus strip. I wanna get that all off. I wanna clean the entire thing so all of the dust and debris is gone. I have no idea how many decades of dust were on the top of this cabinet, but oh buddy, that is disgusting. All right, I moved it out into the sun so that after washing it, it could dry faster and really get all that moisture out. The wood is extremely brittle, it's extremely dry, it just soaked that water up. And so I know it needs some moisture put back into it. I'm gonna use this wood conditioner on it before I do anything else. And then I'm gonna test out maybe some stains, maybe some waxes, and see how it turns out. I'm gonna use my favorite Worcester brush. These brushes are magic. They have a short, flexible handle. You see that? There we go. They have a short, flexible handle, and they are angled, and they're like perfect palm size. See this? I love these brushes. I use them for literally everything. At this point, I didn't know that the door was so much lighter than the rest. I should have waited for the cabinet to fully dry before applying the wood conditioner and starting the stain. All right, I applied the stain. I did a wax on top and then I put stain over it to see how that would take the stain. It's too solid. I want it to be more opaque. Down below, I did just the stain and then I can see what it looks like with the sealer on top. But I think I'm gonna try just the stain on the bottom, on the whole piece, and see what it does. You can see it's lightening it significantly, and hopefully that gets more of the natural wood look that I want without all those red and yellow undertones. Guess what? This would have worked great if that door wasn't so light. Doing it selfie style today, so didn't realize how much the stripper actually took off of the door. See the difference? That one's lighter. That one has more red undertones. That's the only door that I stripped. So I tried to apply some dark wax, tried to see what it would look like if I tried to like mask it. There's no masking it. So I just decided I have to do this the right way or I'm gonna hate it every time I look at it in my kitchen, and I have to strip all of these doors. All right, I've applied the stripper, and this time I'm covering it with saran wrap to try and keep some of the moistness on there so it's not so hard to get back off. I'm gonna close this garage door so the wind's not on it, but you can see it's already starting to work. Fingers crossed. Well, stripping the cupboard was a mistake. Yeah. It was a pretty significant mistake. And the door, still a different color. After stripping the entire cabinet, I had to sand it down again. It was so splotchy and messed up, and I knew that bleach was my next and only option. Good news, friends. The bleach lightened it significantly. And bad news is, since this door is not the color that I want it to be compared to the rest, it's lighter, I hadn't bleached this one, hoping that I could lighten these three to match that one. So I just washed it, and since I didn't bleach it, it started growing mold. So now I'm going to be bleaching it, and bleaching this again. Here we go. Looking back, had I sanded the entire cabinet and bleached right away, it would have done what I wanted. It definitely feels like it's evening out, and I really hesitate to put more water on here because of the mold issue, but I need to neutralize the bleach, or else my stain could get really splotchy if I decide to do a stain. So I'm going to take just a 50-50 water to vinegar solution and wipe it down, and hopefully that will neutralize the bleach without adding too much of the moisture back into the wood. Okay, the bleach lightened it a ton. It did a really good job. But I think that I still just want it a little bit more, less red. Whitewashed? I don't know. I don't even know at this point. But I'm going to attempt a liming wax. I've never done it before, as you can clearly see. And I'm doing it this time. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to do it on a side that will be mostly hidden by the counters and the cabinets that are existing, rather than a door, which is very apparent. Using the liming wax was definitely the way to go to lighten it more. I'm going to let this dry for 30 minutes and then buff it and see what it looks like. It was a pretty physical process, but not overly difficult, and you can see what a big difference it made. I'm at the buffing stage. I think it's gonna work. I think it's gonna work! My arm might fall off in the process, but at the end of this, I am going to have a cabinet. I hope that you enjoyed watching the process, even though it was fairly painful at times. And maybe you learned a few lessons of what not to do. I hope that you did learn in the end a few lessons of what you can do. And I have written up a whole blog post on the steps that I took that actually worked to lighten my pine cupboard, get the red tones out of it, and end up with this beautiful vintage piece that now graces my kitchen. If you have ever struggled through a DIY process like this and you can relate to this at all, share this with your friends, encourage other people to keep going, not to give up. I can't even tell you how many times people told me, just paint it. I didn't want a painted cupboard. I wanted a wood cupboard, and I'm so glad that I didn't take the easy way out and I kept going on it. Thanks for stopping by today. Make sure and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time.